Okay, next is our general sales admin stuff. So now that you've set up your general channel, it's time to go in and set the baseline of some of your foundational data. Most of this is set in the sales admin. So if I go to sales admin, and then I click on let's start with client types. So client types, there's a bunch of use cases here, but client types can apply to pricing tiers. It can just be general filters. The most common use case for our customers is, for example, if I sell to wholesalers and distributors and retailers, and I want to differentiate between those three types of customers, whether that's with pricing or just generally other things. You can put that right here. Adding a client type is very basic. You just add the name, the description, and you can even tie it to a warehouse group if you want to. That's optional. The reason why we do it this way is there's some cool workarounds with warehouse groups for a client type. For example, if you wanted to do a client type that is like country specific, when they purchase through the B2B portal, or when you invoice or you read a sales order, it could be tied to, for example, like in your 3PL in Australia, and it can pull from that inventory number. It can pull from your warehouse in the United States. But that's the reason for this. So there's a bunch of different use cases, but this is how you set it up. So think through how you're going to architect your client types. If you're gonna kind of finagle with warehouse groups and inventory buckets with it, or if it's just like a basic use case of wholesalers, distributors, retailers. Next is gonna be your invoice types, okay? So invoice types is important, and I want you to think through this. So this is especially important if you're gonna do automated billing. So we have default invoice types, like we have a standard and a sample and a dropship. And see, there's logic here. So for example, with the standard, it applies pricing structures. Dropship is basically, does it affect inventory or not? Does it like actually post to inventory? And this setting makes it where the sales order generated off of it does not post to inventory, doesn't have any inventory considerations. Payment terms, so basically the default payment terms to that invoice type. Auto pay, so you could have an invoice type for wholesalers that is non-auto pay, and then an invoice type for wholesalers that is auto pay, for example. Then we have auto pay after days. So the setup here would be, again, as you're thinking through your client types, if you're gonna use auto pay in Luminous, this is when you set this up. And you might not really need to do any setups here. You might wanna just play around with basic invoice types first. Out of the box, like the standard or the sample or the dropship. But if you do, let's say I'm going in and I want to do, I don't know, wholesaler auto billing for this invoice type. So apply pricing structure. What this means is pricing structures that I'm going to show you how to set up will or will not apply on this invoice. Dropship means the sales order does not affect inventory. And this is for a use case of like, say I write a big invoice and it's just sent directly from my factory, from the factory where I do not keep track of inventory to the customer. So like I don't need it to affect inventory. It shouldn't go into forecasts. That's what dropship means. So I will disable this. The default payment terms for this, let's say I do like net 30 and then default due date. So the due date is like when the payment is due. So I'll put 30 days, for example, auto pay on or off, auto pay after, in this case, I probably do after 30 days. And then I can also automatically email the invoice. So this is really important in the setup if you're doing auto billing. What is auto billing? Well, it's, for example, hey, I want to be able to bill this automatically with the credit card on file 30 days after it's shipped. Well, here's what you would do. It's all done through invoice types and like the client types and all those things. Anyways, that is how you set up invoice types and client types in Luminous.